So, with that music playing, there's only one thing we can talk about today: hockey. No, I'm kidding. It's the NFL. NFL is back, and also back with me is Rabindra. What's going on, Rabindra?
What's up, Prakash? Always happy to be here. Not much going on, just ready to discuss some football, especially since we're pretty much right on the cusp of the start of the
Yeah, can you
season.
believe it? 1 week from when we're recording this, it'll be the first regular season game.
Yep,
Got the what is it? The Rams and the Buffalo Bills. That's a good game. It's a really
indeed.
good game,
Yeah,
actually. So might be a Super Bowl preview. So
yeah.
got a big game next week Thursday. But let's talk. So we're gonna talk. We're gonna do this in two parts. So we're gonna do an NFC one and an AFC one. So the AFC one we're gonna do in a few days. So today we're gonna talk NFC. So NFC, I want to start the NFC because the NFC champs were the Rams, who eventually won the Super Bowl. So we give a little bit more love to the NFC for that. That's the only reason we're doing the NFC first.
Okay, makes sense.
Um, yeah. So let's talk about the NFC, man. Let's start off in the division that we're closest to, the NFC East. You know, so of course the NFC East, you've got the Dallas Cowboys, you got the Philadelphia Eagles, you got the Washington. Now they're the Commanders, and the New York Giants in the NFC East. And my thoughts on this division: two teams that really stand out to me, and then there are two teams that I don't know what they'll be. And of course, those two teams that stand out, Philly and Dallas, both could be playoff teams. And then you look at the Giants and the Commanders. I know I'm going to slip up and call them by their old name, but so far so good. But yeah, so I look at those two teams, the Giants and the Commanders, and I don't think they're quite ready yet to compete in the division. So I think for me, and we'll get your thoughts, Robbie. What are your thoughts? For me, it's a two-team race. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I can definitely agree with that, honestly. At least just from the, from this point, this early, it's easy to say for sure. Those two teams, Philly and Dallas, I would only say have more of an opportunity, at least not only making the playoffs, just making something happen. I'm not gonna say, I'm not a Giants fan. Not that I'm not a Giant, I'm a Jets fan wholeheartedly. Doesn't mean I don't necessarily root for New York teams, but I personally think as long as the Giants' offensive line is decent, they can have a decent year this year. Even with those people who aren't too sure about Daniel Jones, I still very much believe in him. That's just my opinion. And yeah, Washington. I mean, I'm not expecting anything from Washington. So anywhere Carson Wentz is, I'm not really expecting anything. That's just how I feel at this point about Wentz.
I mean, if we so when we a couple weeks ago we did the fantasy football, and we were talking about Saquon Barkley, and he would make more sense to draft this year in a fantasy draft, come the year coming off of his injury.
Yep.
So I think for me that holds true. I think that's the only reason why I have a little bit of hope in the Giants. I think I mean, just looking at their schedule, I think there are about 7 to 8 possible wins for them. I'm not saying they're going to win 7, 8 games, but I think there are 7 to 8 games there where they can possibly win some football games. And I think with Barkley back, I think the one thing for me holding them back is I've never been a huge fan of Daniel Jones.
Yeah. He's a guy. He's the X factor.
Yeah, absolutely. Like
Like in terms
if
of their success, in my
yeah,
opinion.
and of course the Giants did hire the new coach from Buffalo, Joe. No, well, Joe Shane. Well, they're both from Buffalo. Brian Joe Shane was in Buffalo's front office, and Brian Dable was on the Buffalo coaching staff. So, looking ahead, all the talk is, well, we can turn Daniel Jones into Josh Allen. If they can do that, I mean, you know, that would be such a huge move for the Giants. But I don't know. I still can't see them. And just agreeing with your point earlier about Carson Wentz, I mean, he just seems like he'll play a few good games and somehow manages to like sprain his ankle or injure himself, and you can't really trust that. So yeah, so that's why I really can't trust Washington, and that's why he was only. Let's be real, he was only in Indianapolis for 1 year.
Well, yeah, and it's not like I mean, I don't know if Washington like really wanted him, but it's just I personally thought he could have, from what I seen and how, at least how I seen things end with Indianapolis last year. I was just like, it was just more of a solidifying, like, I would say, set of circumstances for me when watching Carson Wentz, and I'm just like, all right, maybe this guy's just not that good. Maybe he was just good for a little bit of time, you know. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. Yeah, I mean, he just. I mean,
And then look at the rest of the team. Yeah,
yeah,
like they have Antonio Gibson, Terry
yeah,
McLaurin, right?
McLaurin. Yeah, yeah,
But those are like the only other two like better or the better like offensive options on the team. Besides like I guess you know any young wide receiver, they have Logan Thomas. They still have Curtis Samuel, but these guys are kind of like middling guys, right? So they're not. I don't see them being any type of threat any week to anybody. You know.
yeah. I mean, I don't see. Like I said, I don't see the Commanders being a threat to win to make the playoffs or do anything in this division. Like I said, I'm not saying that the Giants are going to win 7, 8 games. I think they have 7 to 8 games in their schedule that are winnable.
Yeah.
But I'm not a believer in Daniel Jones. I think Barkley has a huge bounce back year, and he'll probably rush. I don't know. I think he definitely rushes for over 1,000 yards, and I think that that should open up their passing game a little bit.
Yeah. No, all those things come. I mean, I just, I'm not, I don't follow, I can't say I follow the Giants like how I follow the Jets, in a sense. So, all I just do know is that this year, apparently, the offensive line has gotten help. So, if they've gotten help and it's not as bad as it was the last couple of years in terms of protection, Daniel Jones should be able to do a little more. I mean, I just remember seeing him run a bit, do some things sometimes, some flashes. I remember seeing some things from Daniel Jones at times where I'm like, all right, maybe this guy could actually do something. I hear you though. I hear you on and others saying they're not sold on him. I personally think this is the year to tell. This is the year. This is the year where I'll say, based on how he performs, obviously, like if he craps the bed, then yeah, I don't believe in. I'll definitely say I don't believe in Daniel Jones after this
Yeah.
year.
So
You know?
just one last point there on Daniel Jones that the Giants didn't pick up his 5th year option. So if he's not, if he doesn't play well, the Giants, he's not going to be on his team next year.
Yeah, no, it's good.
So
It's good
yeah,
pressure if you ask me. At the end of the day,
yeah,
like you should do that. I mean, especially if you don't or you feel like you haven't really gotten what you wanted out of your player yet. So that only makes sense. I didn't know that, but that makes sense.
yeah. They
Yeah,
didn't pick up his 5th year option. So either if I mean, so if he has a big season, which I think Giant fans will be very happy about, if he has the big season and the Giants are, around 8, 9 wins, I think the Giants will actually say, okay, he's our guy. We're going to keep him. We're going to give him a contract. Or if he's not the guy, you have to find a new one in the draft. So,
yeah,
not to make this too much of a Giant too heavy chat here, but
yeah, yeah,
shifting on over to the other two teams who we actually do think will do make some noise in the NFC. You have Philly last year who actually went to the playoffs, got kind of destroyed a little bit in that first round against Tampa Bay. And then you've got the Dallas Cowboys, who also got knocked out in the first round to the San Francisco 49ers. So just looking ahead, I mean, is this NFC East? I mean, the Cowboys and the Eagles. I think we're both in agreement that they're going to be the two teams that are probably going to compete the most in this division. Probably the class of the division right now. But come January, are they going to be making a lot of noise in the playoffs, or are they just going to get knocked down the first round again? What do you think?
I mean, that purely comes down to matchup. We can't, and especially when it comes to football. When I think about it, you know, one thing that's very true about football is like the healthiest team should win, especially playoff time. So like, I can't really say. It really depends who they match up with, because when I look at their team and I look at Philly, I see basically what I think of is I think of an uptick in terms of like Jalen Hurts just being a better quarterback this year, and as long as and with him having Devontae Smith and AJ Brown to throw to, and Goddard, decent running back, like they have some real offensive firepower. So then when you think about whoever they match up with, then I guess you got to think about like their defense. How well their defense will probably hold up. So I don't know. I can't say. I still think I think they have obviously improved, but I don't know if I can say that they can withstand maybe playing any other of the top NFC teams when they see them in the playoffs. Let's just say if they go up against, I don't know, they end up going up against the Rams or something. Like, I don't know. I still think the Rams are just too stacked at this point. You know what I mean? Like, if they see them in the playoffs,
Yeah, I mean, like I
because
honestly,
you never know. You never know where
yeah,
Philly could seed, right? They could end up being. They could end up being. They could. I don't. I can say right now, I personally, my favorite is just Dallas to technically win the division, right? So then, if Dallas wins the division, and Philly makes it, then they make it on the kind of secondary note. Then they play whoever is a higher seed, and then boom, it could end up being the Rams. And Rams are just too stacked, right? Like,
like I I I think Dallas is now, just to talk about them for a minute. You've got Dak, you've got two good running backs. I don't think Ezekiel Elliott is the big time back he once was anymore. I think he's actually taken a step backwards, but I think it's
yeah,
okay because they actually have two good backs in Zeke and Tony Pollard,
hmm
and their wide receivers guys like CeeDee Lamb, who's probably should be who's gonna
he's their number one.
yeah, he's clearly the number one. They did trade away to Amari Cooper, so
Yeah,
see there, and Dak. I don't know. It's just that like I can see them making the playoffs because I think the one thing about the NFC is I think when you look at the divisional teams, the division teams who are like favorite to win the divisions,
yeah.
I think the Super Bowl contend. I don't look at any wild card here. Maybe the 49ers, but maybe if they get in there, I don't know. But I don't look at the rest of the NFC and think that anybody but a division winner is gonna win the NFC. Like I think it's a very top heavy conference for me.
Mm.
So I mean I'm looking. I think Philly will be. I think Philly and Dallas are gonna have a nice little battle. I think the Giants will, for me personally, the Giants will be better, but I don't think honestly I don't see them being more than a 6 or 7 win team. And Washington, I mean, who knows? Maybe they're a 4 or 5 win team, but um, not going to make
Not
our picks
even.
yet. Not going to make our picks yet.
Yeah.
I think we should save that for the AFC one, and when we do everything. So now we're just talking about the NFC, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just looking at for me. For me, it's going to be either. I'm not going to make my pick yet, but I think the division is going to go either to Philly or Dallas, and I think the Giants are going to learn a lot about Daniel Jones, and we're going to learn a lot about him. And Washington, well, I don't know. I don't know what to say about the Commanders. I almost said their old name there just now, but the Commanders,
Mm.
I don't know what they're going to do, to be honest. Like, I don't look at them and say that they're going to make any noise in the NFC or in the division whatsoever.
Understood. No, it makes sense. In all honesty, I'm with you on it. 100. Like, all that makes sense. It's just the only thing is just I will just add, I personally just think the Giants are a team on the brink. I just think they could probably make something happen. That's it.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
probable. Just a
Yeah,
probable.
absolutely. So let's shift to the South, actually. And I mean, this is another division that's kind of like the one we just talked about, the NFC South. Is going to be a lot like the NFC East. There's one team that's like the class of the division, Tampa Bay, and then everybody else, Atlanta, New Orleans, Carolina. I don't know. Maybe I think Tampa Bay wins this division,
Yeah,
and
landslide.
yeah,
Yeah.
landslide. I don't think it.
Well, I don't know about
Yeah,
landslide really, because New Orleans is the one competing team when I think about all those other teams. Atlanta's definitely not anything. They have Marcus Mariota rolling for them. That team is just. I don't know.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
and then Carolina, and then Carolina. I mean, I'll tell you this right now, since we're talking about them. I kind of believe. I think Baker Mayfield's out for blood,
Mhm.
if I may say that. Like, I really think he's like angry at Cleveland. And I think because he's angry, he's probably gonna like. I'm not gonna say he's gonna like show out and do something crazy, but I think he might actually be quite efficient and hold it down this year. Like, and especially if he still has Christian McCaffrey with him throughout most of the season. Like, like Baker Mayfield isn't the best quarterback, but I've kind of seen him at least be somewhat like he was somewhat decent before he got hurt, right? That last set of at least games he was playing. So I don't think Carolina's really gonna make much of a splash though. I guess record wise and with all these other teams, like I just think it's really between New Orleans and Tampa, and obviously with the majority edge to Tampa. But like when you look at New Orleans, like New Orleans has a really good defense, and Jameis Winston could kind of like still work. I think it still comes down to Michael Thomas playing this year. He's been a crazy question mark the last 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Like the last 2 years, he didn't really get to play at all. So, but New Orleans, if they're fully healthy, they have Michael Thomas, Jarvis Landry, two really good possession receivers, and they still have Alvin Kamara. So the team's not bad. It's just I still don't think they're gonna necessarily overtake Tampa. I think Tampa easily takes that
Like
division. Like if they don't take that division, it'll just be a crazy surprise.
like I'm in full agreement with you there. I don't think any one of those teams is overtaking Tampa,
Yeah,
right?
no
But
way. Yeah.
could it be possible where like Carolina or New Orleans gets to the playoffs? I don't think that's out of the question
No,
at
yeah,
all.
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely not out of it. I think New Orleans could definitely get to the playoffs. I think if we were to pick another team that's on the cusp to possibly make a push for it, I think Carolina could. I think it just comes down to then Carolina's like just stopping ability because at the end of the day, they could put up so much points, so they're gonna be able to stop guys. I don't know how
Yeah.
good their defense is this year.
And you mentioned it, Christian McCaffrey, if he's healthy, like that I mean the guy he's one of the best players in all of football. But if he's healthy,
Yeah,
so that's
yes,
that's the key to me. If they like same thing, if McCaffrey can have a great regular season opening up that passer game and Baker Mayfield, I mean,
it's really not that bad.
yeah, he's not a bad quarterback. Yeah.
He's a good like middling average quarterback.
Yeah,
Like you
yeah,
know what I mean?
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Like he so like he's really not that bad. I don't know. Like I said, I just personally feel like he's out here looking for blood, or like he just wants like his revenge. That's just my opinion.
No, no, like, yeah, I can,
Yeah,
I don't think that's like an understatement what you just said.
yeah,
Like that can totally possibly happen. Like he can go
yeah.
out and look, he's won in the playoffs before, and he was really close to beating Kansas City that one year in the divisional round. So
Almost forgot about
he,
that. Yeah.
yeah, so he's not. It's not like they have like Marcus Mariota at quarterback. They actually have like a legit. They have stars on that team in Carolina. They have good players on that team.
Mm.
They could make. It wouldn't shock me if they made the playoffs, but it would shock me if they won the division because I still think Tampa is just
Yeah,
they've got
not definitely not winning the division.
yeah.
But I mean, I saw a meme today about Christian McCaffrey, and it was like if you draft CMC this year, it's either one of two things. He's like, and it was like one, you draft him with your first pick, and he misses 80% of the season, or two, he's the
Yeah,
best fantasy player for the whole season. So it's either one of those
yeah.
two scenarios. Yeah, like so, which is very much the case. So like at least that's what I could say. He's hurt me the last couple years, good couple weeks. So but they
I
still have DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson.
yeah, yeah.
They have
Robbie,
I
yeah.
always like Robbie Anderson.
Hmm.
So
And
you know,
they finally have a decent quarterback, so I think they can definitely make some noise
yeah,
in the playoff race. I'm not gonna say division,
yeah,
but and same thing, just to back up on New Orleans, same exact thing with them.
mm,
Jameis, he's a 30 touchdown quarterback and a 30 interception quarterback. Like that's what he's gonna be. He's always going to be there. He's always going to throw a lot of interceptions, throw touchdowns, run the ball. But they've got a good, solid running back in Kamara. I mean, just
Yeah,
last season, this guy was like the number 2 pick in all fantasy. Now I
yeah,
mean,
he's sliding a bit because of
yeah,
the whole thing he has going on. But from my understanding, it doesn't look like it's going to affect him this year.
yeah, it's not. So you still have a legitimate running back in Alvin Kamara,
Yeah, that's
and
why. That's
then
why. Yeah, I see that
yeah,
run New Orleans. I can't count him out.
yeah, I wouldn't count them out. Like I'm not counting them out for the playoffs, but I think division. We haven't even talked about. We talked about Tampa Bay a little bit, but Tampa Bay, you've got Tom Brady, you've got all those weapons. Leonard Fournette in the backfield, and you've got Mike Evans is the receiver. Julio Jones is there, if I'm not mistaken.
Hmm.
So maybe he'll have a little resurgence in his career.
Hey, he has
You
Tom
know,
Brady going to him. He has to.
yeah, and then hopefully they get Godwin at some point back
Mhm.
in the season. So they're the team, and don't count their defense. They're a very good defensive football
Oh
team as
yeah,
well.
nah,
Yeah,
yeah, I know. Their defense is still top notch. I think it's like top five still right now.
yeah. So I mean they're good on both sides of the ball. So I think that's why I like Tampa Bay. I know I said, but I mean I don't really think it's a shocker if I say I think Tampa Bay's winning that division. I think Tampa Bay may win like 12, 13 football games. I think they're that good, and I think all the other teams like we were mentioning about Carolina and they'll probably be around like the 9, 10 win mark if they have a good year. But Tampa Bay is just a class of that division, and Atlanta. I mean, Atlanta's really playing I think for the number 1 pick.
Basically, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, like I said, they have Mariota. Their wide receivers, Drake London, so another young guy, but
and
then no one really else.
they won't. I mean,
So
they
like,
won't have Calvin Ridley this year.
well, yeah, no,
Yeah.
Yeah, Ridley's done.
hmm
So he's let me see what the latest update on Ridley is.
Yeah, he and Kyle Pitts. He can have a good year. He's gonna be their only weapon.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's one thing. Yeah, we had mentioned in fantasy. Yeah, Kyle Pitts is definitely. I mean, Cordell Patterson had a pretty decent fantasy year last
Yeah,
year,
yeah, he actually did actually.
actually. So,
Mhm.
and they use him as a running back slash wide receiver. I definitely remember trading him in a league or so. So like he could be used too. But yeah, their team is just pretty much just going to be on the field taking majority L's.
Yeah, especially I think in that division where I think Carolina is going to be better. I think New Orleans is going to be good, and Tampa Bay is going to be a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah.
So yeah, so looking that, but like I said, we're not making our picks yet. You have to stay tuned for part 2 of this podcast, which should come out in a few days. Okay, so shifting now, let's move to the north. We're in the south. Let's move to the north, and this it's an interesting division, and I think when you talk about the North, you talk about Green Bay has been the class of this division for how many years now? I can't even count them.
Mm.
Because they have the man, as Stephen A. Smith calls him, that bad man. He's a bad man, right? Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Um, then looking, but they did lose a huge piece, man. Like Devontae Adams. That's
Yeah.
a that's a receiver in his prime that they traded away. So we'll just get like who's going to throw the ball to? Is Alan Lazard going to become now the next guy? Aaron Rodgers is that good. He's one of those quarterbacks that elevates the talent around him, and they do have a good running game and their defense. So I still think they're at the top. I don't think they're going to. They're going to all of a sudden. I mean, barring a huge injury or something, but I don't think that Green Bay is going to end up outside of the playoffs. But I do look at the other teams in that division, and everyone seems to quietly like the Detroit Lions.
What?
And yeah, like you look at DeAndre Swift. Everyone's like, oh, he's gonna be a big back, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I hope I said his name right.
You did. You
Yeah,
did.
that he's gonna have a big year. But I guess it's just whether or not you believe in Jared Goff. Is he going to be the guy that's going to take them to the playoff level? And then, of course, you've got the Minnesota Vikings, who have big pieces on offense, but same story with the quarterback. Do you believe in Kirk Cousins? And Chicago, well, I mean, you got like an aging David Montgomery, who's who maybe even up to last year was a fantasy starter. Now he's probably like your backup guy. I don't think anyone's going to take him. And then you got Darryl Mooney as well. But are they going to go? Are they going to roll with their young quarterback? So to me, that's how the division plays out. I think the only reason for me I like Green Bay so much is because their quarterback situation is so much more settled than you have more belief in Aaron Rodgers than you do in Kirk Cousins or Jared Goff. So give your thoughts on the Central. Not the Central, excuse me, the North.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, I guess thinking about them all, the North, just I guess just to cover it all, we said it was Green Bay, Detroit, Minnesota, and Chicago, right?
Yes. Yes.
All right. So yeah, I would say at least out of those four, specifically, I'll say that Green Bay and Minnesota, I would say above the other two, and say they have more obviously of a little bit legitimate shot of not only winning their division but potentially obviously just making the playoffs, right? Um, Detroit. I mean, I heard you when you mentioned that when it comes to Detroit. Uh, I mean, I like DeAndre Swift for the idea of DeAndre Swift and everything. Um, I'm not sure how I feel about Jared Goff. Uh, I know that they had to make they did not had to, but they made that trade and they decided to invest and or believe in Jared Goff. I'll be honest, I'm just not too sure how I can't say I really like them that much. I don't know. I don't expect Detroit to really be that much of a surprising team or surprising me more than what they should do to me. And then Chicago, I just Justin Fields is who intrigues me the most. Just about just in regards to that team. I don't think. I mean, I get that they're talking about David Montgomery maybe losing some work to Herbert, but I don't know. I wouldn't have necessarily labeled him as aging. At least that would be me. I still think he still has a lot of a bit of workhorse left in him. But I still don't think even with him and Fields, improving. I don't really see too many targets, like great targets for Fields to throw to. So, I still think it's still going to be a bit of some struggles this year for him. So, like Green Bay, just going back to them and Aaron Rodgers. I mean, yeah, Aaron Rodgers is the type of talent to me that I feel, no matter who he has around him, he's going to make it work. I don't think Sammy Watkins is necessarily Devontae Adams. You're right in terms of the type of talent he lost and the type of wide receiver he lost. Like, I guess right now, if you look at the depth chart, it's technically Allen Lazard at the number 1 and Watkins at 2, Cobb at 3. So, but I personally just think, especially with Cobb, like he already has familiarity with him. He'll be able to figure it out. In terms of Aaron Rodgers, he could figure out how to get his team going, especially on the offensive end. With his running back. So
Yeah, like I think for me that's the key. Is
yeah,
that I like Green Bay's running game.
yeah, they still he still
Yeah.
has a decent balanced attack there.
Yeah.
Minnesota, I'm not too worried about. Like Minnesota, they still have a good defense, and I still think they have a good offense. Maybe people may not like Kirk Cousins as much, but I still kind of do. So I still think he's a solid quarterback. So they still have Justin Jefferson, Thielen,
Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
so they're good.
Dalvin Cook and
Dalvin Cook, yeah,
yeah.
can't go wrong. So yeah, so Minnesota, Green Bay for sure, and I would just say Chicago, so Detroit. I would say Detroit is the bottom team. Well, maybe Detroit and Chicago might be fighting for that bottom spot. I don't know.
I mean when you think about the NFC North, right? And the one like the Minnesota has so much talent. I think they actually have more offensive talent than Green Bay, except at quarterback,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
But they're one of those teams, and it always seems like they just can't get out of their own. They have bad losses every single year,
yeah,
and you scratch your head. A game that they should win, they end up somehow losing. I mean, the Vikings. I mean, it's time for them to take. I mean, they've got the pieces. Justin Jefferson is one of the best receivers in all of football. probably right up there with Cooper Kupp. And Dalvin Cook is a top 5 back, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's just, I mean, could you imagine if Aaron Rodgers had that kind of talent around? I mean, that would be ridiculous how good Green Bay would be. Aaron Rodgers finds a way to make the players around him better. I don't know if Kirk Cousins to me has to take that step and, elevate the guys around him and not the other way around.
Yeah, no, I agree. I definitely do agree. Maybe he's just not ultimately that leader though.
Yeah.
You know, so like he could be a great quarterback. He just may not necessarily like ultimately be that leader.
And then, I mean, you just mentioning Detroit. I mean, Detroit, I think they're one of those teams as well that they could, because the NFC, I mean, like we've been saying, the NFC is such a top heavy conference. Like you have, I mean, I think you have like 4 definite teams that are, we're who are going to win the divisions.
Mm.
And then you've got, who are probably going to make the most noise. And then, the other teams, I really can't see them making any noise in this. And I'm just looking at Chicago and Detroit. I mean, Chicago basically is going to have a second year quarterback, a rookie quarterback, because they did play Andy Dalton a bit last year.
Mm.
And then you're looking at Detroit, and I I just can't show that I have belief in Jared Goff. I mean, Jared Goff did get to a Super Bowl. Let's not forget that he did play in a Super Bowl. One of the worst Super Bowls that I've ever seen, but he did play in one.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just looking at this team. I mean, you look and you say, okay, Swift is a good back, and you've got Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm gonna keep saying his name because I got it right. You
Mm-hmm.
got him, and then you got Hawkinson at tight end. So they've got some pieces. It's just, do you believe in Jared Goff? And I'm of the school I don't believe in Jared Goff, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah,
going to believe in him more than certain weekly fantasy flyers. That's it.
yeah, like
Yeah,
yeah,
like
exactly, yeah.
certain weeks where I'm like, all right, he might actually have a decent game today. That's it.
Mhm. And of course, we'll get to see the Lions on Thanksgiving Day. They're probably their only primetime game will be Thanksgiving
Mm-hmm.
game. So yeah, so that's the NFC North. What we really think about it. Um, and of course, let's go to the last of not the last division, but the division we haven't spoken about yet in the NFC West.
Mm-hmm.
And this division, I think you have 3 legitimate teams that can make some noise in the playoffs. And then you have the one team up in Seattle that's you know, another team that has good pieces but doesn't have the quarterback.
They don't have Russell no more. That's
Yeah.
all, man. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean,
Mhm.
Seattle's definitely out the picture. Um, I'm interested to see, how this offense just really is. I will, not that I can't really tell, but just what it's going to look like with Geno Smith or Drew Lock, whoever it is. I think it's going to be Geno Smith though, and I just, other than them, yeah, Arizona is in the NFC West, right?
Yeah.
Obviously the Rams, and who's the other team that I'm not?
The 49ers.
Oh yeah, how am I forgetting? Yes. So yeah, this is probably the easiest division to talk about because if
Yeah.
anything, I mean, there's probably going to be one of these 3 teams that probably just may not end up making it because they all. I don't know if they all can make it unless everyone else in the league just sucks, or the divisional like ranking or like standings don't necessarily spread out. It's possible, but yeah, San Francisco definitely is a legit team to make it. Obviously, Los Angeles because they won last year, and Arizona for sure. I think Kyler Murray has a lot to prove this year. Excuse me. The only thing that's gonna kind of hurt Arizona though is D Hop is suspended for a little bit, right?
Yeah. I think the
Um,
first 6 games, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah. So those first 6 games just have to be some sort of management system for them and making sure that they are able to at least win an X amount out of those 6 without it hurting them. Um, because it's possible. I didn't look at the Arizona schedule, but depending who they match up with, the first 6 games could definitely be a problem. I mean, I'm sure Kyler Murray's gonna go all out, And he still has like other pieces, other guys he could throw to, but D Hop definitely makes a big difference. So you know, so that's the only thing there. But like when it comes to the others, I don't. What else can I really say? Like the Rams should definitely be a lock unless their whole team gets hurt, and then San Francisco, I would say the same thing too. You know,
So let me see.
San Francisco is still pretty good.
Trying to pull up the schedule to look at the first 6 games because the last few years the Cardinals have gotten off to like this amazing start, like they're undefeated, and then
And then they just start to slow
yeah,
down.
they just fade all of a sudden. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so that's their preseason. Okay, now they gave me the preseason. I don't want their preseason schedule. I want their regular season. Okay, so here we go. Okay, week 1. Let me give you their week. So week 1, they're home for Kansas City. Week 2, they're at Las Vegas. Week 3, they're at the LA. No, they're home for the Rams. Week 4, they're at Carolina. Then week 5, they're home for Philly, and week 6, they're at Seattle. So that's actually not an easy
That's
schedule.
not. It's not
Yeah,
horrible because out of all those that you just listed, I still think they could win 4 of those games. Seattle, they should beat. I think. I mean, the Raiders. I don't know. That's the thing. Like only way I don't know is because the Raiders did get a little better, right?
yeah, oh
So,
yeah,
because they got Devontae Adams.
yeah.
Yeah, Dirk Carr definitely has some pieces overall to throw to, and he still has a decent like running game behind him. So, that could be a 50-50 there. But I think Seattle they could definitely win. Give me the other teams again.
So
I said
we
Los Angeles they'll lose to. Which Los Angeles? Chargers or Rams?
Rams.
All right, so Rams. Okay, so I'll say they're gonna lose to the Rams. Who
Okay,
else?
they're home for Kansas City.
They should lose to Kansas City.
Then they're at Las Vegas.
Well, they're home. Hold on. Are they home playing the Rams and Kansas City? They're both
Yes.
home games. Oh crap. Nah,
Yeah,
I don't know if they're gonna lose 2 home games though, man. You gotta
and then
consider that too.
they're
Well, you
at
know what?
they're at Vegas.
And they're at Vegas, yeah. And they're at Seattle when they play Seattle.
Yes, at Seattle.
And what are the other two? I know you
They're
said Los Angeles
at
Rams
Carolina
and
and home for
Carolina,
Philly.
Philly. They could beat Carolina, regardless of where they're at. So I'll say in those 6 games they can still end up 3-3. I think it's just fair to say they could go 3-3, maybe 4-2 at best. They're not clean. They're not. They definitely not cleaning house without DeAndre Hopkins though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as long best case scenario they finish 4-2, even 3-3 in those first 6 games. That's not bad. If I was an Arizona Cardinals fan without D Hop and going 3-3 in those first 6 games, I would be ecstatic. Well, not ecstatic, but I would be happy.
I think they're a good team when it at the beginning of the year, and this has been a trend for the past 2 seasons.
Yeah, no,
Like,
I heard you mention
yeah,
that. I can't say I've noticed that, but um, I'm just like I said, I'm looking at their personnel. And then I'm thinking about their defense because I was trying to see where they are defense wise this year. All these teams make adjustments, players sign, get dropped or traded, whatever. So I'm not sure where their defense falls. From right now, my understanding, it looks like they're in like the bottom third of the league, Arizona, right now.
and what's JJ Watts? What's his status?
Um, I don't know. Let's see.
I mean, yeah. So I
Yeah,
mean,
checking right now. Hold on, give me a second.
they're yeah, just they're a good football team. That I think could win the division, but I'm not picking them to win the division. I'm not going to tell you who I pick
Oh,
yet.
yeah,
Yeah.
They said JJ Watt should be good.
Okay.
From what I'm reading here, this was the last update on him I got from him is in April, so that should be good. But it says that he's been 100% for a couple months. Will participate in off-season work. And again, this was in April, so I just don't, I haven't been watching them otherwise. But as long as he's good and healthy, he should be good.
Yeah, I think they'll be they'll be fine. They'll to me they'll definitely be a playoff contender.
Yeah.
I don't see. I
Yeah,
look at
no,
the.
they definitely contend for some spot. That's
Then
where it
you got
gets weird with that division because, like I said, those three teams definitely could be in the playoffs.
yeah, and then you look at one other team before we get to. I mean, we've spoken about Seattle, but there's really not. There's really no quarterback there in Seattle that you have to look
Yeah,
at and
nah,
say, yeah.
yeah,
So
nah, it's
you
just not.
can't really look at them and say, oh, they're a contender. They're kind of in the same boat as like the Falcons.
Mhm.
Just like a standby quarterback until they maybe look for someone in the upcoming draft in next year in 2023.
Mhm.
But I'm looking at two other teams, the two teams that actually played in the NFC Championship game last year, the Rams and the 49ers. And of course, Jimmy G is staying. He's staying. He's going to stay. But is it Trey Lance's time? That's their question. That's my question. And if
Yeah,
Trey
that's
Lance,
such a question. Such a
yeah,
question.
if Trey Lance is not the guy, is that why to me that I think that's why they're keeping Jimmy G around because Jimmy Garoppolo, if Trey Lance is not the guy, well, at least you have a guy who's gotten you to the NFC Championship game before. So that's what I look at when I see the 49ers. I mean, they of course we talk about them. They're a very good defensive football team. That's kind of like one of their staples, and of course they've got a very good piece in Debo Samuel on offense, Elijah Mitchell, and the backfield. So George Kittle, probably top two
Top
three
tight
tight
end.
end. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they've got the 49ers have some good pieces, and I think they can compete. I think if Trey Lance if he's the man, they can compete in that division and in the whole NFC.
Couldn't agree more. They're definitely set. Like they have a good wide, I would say, spread out, both sides of the ball type of team.
Yeah.
So it does really come down to the quarterback though. That's where the big question mark is for them. Um, at least in terms of the future and like overall consistency. So I would only hope Trey Lance is the guy, honestly, for them.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand why they did it. They did it for like kind of like a safety net for why they
Yeah.
kept Jimmy G
Well, I mean,
as
you
a
ask
safety
me.
blanket.
If
Yeah.
you ask me, worst case scenario is just Jimmy G's a trade chip. They can still trade him. They can
Yeah.
trade him. Somebody might end up needing a quarterback. I know we were really close as a Jets fan. I know we were really close to maybe going after Jimmy G because Zach Wilson got hurt already, but he should be okay. So
Yeah. Yeah.
like,
No, definitely. Yeah. I definitely, somebody, if a quarterback gets hurt somewhere, why not get on the phone to the 49ers? So I can see why the 49ers kept him,
mm,
and I mean, just looking at the 49ers, I really think that they are going to contend not only for the division. So that to me, of the four divisions, that's going to be the most entertaining
I agree.
in my opinion. And we were saying that when I talk about, we haven't even mentioned the defending Super Bowl champions yet, the Rams.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, but there's only so much I can say about them. They're stacked, man. So like, their defense is still solid, and then they have Allen Robinson now instead of Robert Woods,
yeah,
right? They
yeah,
pretty much replaced Robert Woods, and Robert Woods got hurt last year anyway, and they still won. Granted, they had OBJ, and then even OBJ didn't, you know, hold it down. But I mean, well, at least he played as much as he could. And
I
then, wait, what were you gonna say?
no, go ahead.
Yeah, and then but their team just stacked, especially with Cooper Cup. Just like now everyone knows about Cooper Cup, and that might maybe change some things for him a little bit. But he still has Allen Robinson next to him. I think Allen Robinson, at least if he stays healthy, he should be good this year. And Van Jefferson wasn't a bad third option. Higbee's a good tight end. Their running game isn't bad. So like this team is still just quite stacked. Like I wouldn't be surprised if they make it to the Super Bowl again. In my opinion. You
Yeah,
know.
absolutely. No,
Yeah.
absolutely right.
Yeah.
And let's not forget, the big man on defense, Aaron Donald.
Of course. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
uh,
No.
J-
I
yeah,
know.
Jalen Ramsey out there in the corner.
Wow, I know, man.
Yeah.
Trust
So
me, I
I
never
mean,
forget those guys.
yeah. So
Those two make a huge difference.
that's a stacked defensive team.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I don't. What questions one would have about them is maybe running game. I think Allen Robinson, to be honest, is a better option. I mean, he was a borderline one in Chicago.
Yeah.
Wasn't he was a one in Chicago
Well,
actually. Yeah,
he
wide
was number
receiver
one.
one. Yeah,
Yeah, he was definitely their number one. Just things just didn't work.
yeah.
Whatever, however, whatever in Chicago. But he was definitely. I just remember how high he was in fantasy until he just started losing value.
Well,
So I just think this is the year, or not year, but this is a good team for him to be on. Though all the
yeah,
attention that's gonna go on Cooper Cup, he's got to get something going.
yeah, and I think it also when he starts to get going, I think that's when it's going to open up for Cooper Cup back because now you can't just focus on Cooper Cup leaving Allen or Robinson. You're going to have to
Mm.
play. You're going to have
Yeah,
to play on both of those guys, and to me, that's what's going to open up their passing game even more. And of course, we've mentioned their defense. So they're just a good all around football team.
No,
And
I couldn't agree with you more there. I agree.
still possibly there's a there maybe OBJ re-signs with them. I haven't seen a lot of reports. Maybe Buffalo, but that's the next podcast. We cannot talk about Buffalo yet, but
I mean, he's still recovering,
yeah,
so right,
yeah,
he should only still be recovering based on the injury that he got.
yeah. So
Yeah.
this, I mean, the NFC, like I keep saying, like when we're talking about the other divisions, we're talking about a lot of ifs and maybes and that sort of thing when it comes to the secondary teams in the divisions. But I think realistically, we have a good grasp and a good idea who we think will win the divisions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but this division could go three ways. Let's be real.
He
I
could.
mean, yeah,
It could. It really could.
So yeah, so I mean, that's the NFC. I think it's very top heavy. Um, we're gonna make our predictions next podcast when we talk the AFC. Then we're gonna do our playoff predictions and then Super Bowl predictions. Who we think is gonna end up in? It's in Arizona this year, if I'm not mistaken. So who's gonna end up?
Yeah.
It's Super Bowl 57 in Arizona.
Wow.
So just looking ahead, looking forward to that one where you get to hear our predictions. This is just a little bit of a what we thought about it because I mean I hate to sound like a broken record, but the NFC is just so top heavy. You know, just so top heavy that it's not like the AFC, their counterparts, where there's a lot more intrigue in the AFC because there's so many teams that can actually compete in the AFC. The NFC, I'm looking at it and uh, I think they do have elite teams, but it's just that the elite teams are at the top, and the teams in the back end, I don't know if they're going to make a run.
Exactly. I mean, I could definitely. I don't. When I look at all the different teams in the AFC, I could just think of, I guess, the top teams for me immediately when I think of the AFC. I think Buffalo. That's probably like the first team that comes to my mind in the AFC, along with like Kansas City. And like as I really look, I mean, Denver is a intriguing team to think about in the AFC at this point with Russell Wilson. Like that swap really makes a big difference for them, if you ask me, and puts them in like some sort of contention, like immediately, because I mean they did lose one of their wide receivers. We're not gonna get deep into the AFC thing, but I'm just saying, like when you really look at it though, after maybe a few teams, then it's like really just a bunch of teams trying to get there. You know, but I think,
Yeah,
in my opinion, you know, because that's it. Like I'm really just scrolling through the AFC. Like Tennessee was a top team at one point, right? Um, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how I feel about Tennessee, but again, I'm not gonna let's not dabble too much into it. We can save that for the next for the next one. But remember, just not too long ago, Tennessee I think was in the Super Bowl, right? What was that, 2 years ago?
yeah, they got that was the year they got knocked out in the AFC. That was like the Derrick Henry coming out party.
Yeah,
Yeah, like 3. Yeah, then
but yeah, like
they
think,
got beat by Kansas City, I
yeah,
believe, in the
but yeah,
AFC
think
Championship
about it.
game.
Like
Yeah,
literally, when you really think about it, just Buffalo, Kansas City, like I mentioned, those teams, and then pretty much like those are only two teams that really stand out to me, in the AFC, and then the rest is just everyone really battling. You know, Los
yeah.
Angeles Chargers are in the AFC. They're not a bad team either,
I mean,
but I can't even say that I would even put them like at the top tier though.
I get for me, and we'll talk about this on the next one. But Chargers,
Mm,
everything has to come together. They have to put everything together. If
yeah,
they do that, they're going to
yeah,
be a very everyone's in love with Justin Herbert. So,
yeah.
but we'll talk about him in the next podcast. So, all right, man.
All right.
We just gave you a little preview of the NFC. So we're not going to, like I said, keep saying we're not going to give you our predictions just yet. We're just going to hold off until the next one, which should be up in a couple of days. The next podcast, which will be up in a couple of days.
Mm,
Um, that'll be up, and then we'll give you like a full preview of what's to come in the NFC. We may even look into, that should be a bigger one because then I think we may even want to look at some games in week one. Maybe talk a little bit about that Buffalo the Buffalo LA Ram game. That's the
hmm
opening night, which is a pretty big game. So, any last thoughts on the NFC, Robbie?
I think we covered a lot of it. I think we definitely touched on as much as we could, especially it's so early. This season, there's gonna be just like any NFL season. There's gonna be a lot of things that we're gonna predict, and it's not gonna go that way.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. There's a yeah, but yeah. So okay, so this is just our thoughts on the NFC, and hope you enjoyed it. And look forward for the part 2 of this podcast. We're going to talk AFC playoff picture, maybe dabble in some games that are going to happen week 1. So that should be a bigger football one. So
Indeed.
until then, let me cue the music. Let me cue this music up here for you.
All right.
And Fox, please don't sue me. So this is the music for Fox
You gotta
because
tell
we were talking NFC.
Oh,
So let me
okay.
see here. Let me restart that. Okay. And until the next one, bye for now. And let's have some music outro.
All right.
All right. All
All
right, guys.
right.
Thanks for listening. And we'll see you on the next one.
Indeed. Take care, folks.